So this is going to be just a little bit of that review that we had from the very beginning on therapeutic communication, because you're going to get a little bit of this towards your Unit 4 and Unit 5. And so with the first thing we talked about is silence. Silence gives that client the opportunity to, one, organize their thoughts. It allows them to think through any points or topics that they want to think about. It allows them to introduce another topic that might be of more concern to them. But it also allows the nurse to be able to identify important themes related throughout the client's conversation. Giving recognition requires that we acknowledge and indicate awareness of what's going on. And it's better than giving a compliment. So when you acknowledge, you would say something like, I see you made your bed, or I noticed that you made a ceramic bowl in OT. Other ways that you can communicate is through broad opening. And broad opening allows a client to take the initiative in introducing the topic. So you can emphasize the importance of the client's role in the interaction by saying things like, what would you like to talk about today? Or tell me what you're thinking. Anything that gets the patient to tell you more and doesn't close them off with a yes or no question is going to be really good, except for why questions that look like you're questioning the patient and their choices or decision. Offering general leads are encouraging the client to continue on with what they're saying and the conversation. So those general leads are things like, yes, I see, go on, or, and after that. So placing the events in time or sequence clarifies the relationship events so that the patient and the client can view these events in the right perspective. So examples of this can be what seemed to lead up to, and then allow some further explanation. Or was this before or after you came to the hospital? Or when did this happen? Making observations is a verbalization of what is observed or perceived. So you encourage the client to recognize behavior, specific behavior, and compare perceptions with the nurse. So for instance, a nurse may say, you seem tense, or I notice you're pacing a lot, or you seem uncomfortable when. This allows the patient to either say, oh, no, I'm not tense, or yes, I am tense, and then go on into further explanation of what is actually going on. And that continues that communication. Restating is repeating the main idea being stated by the patient. It lets the client know that what they've said or expressed has actually been understood. So it also gives the client the chance to continue. So the client may say, I can't study, my mind keeps wandering. And the nurse response could be, you have difficulty concentrating. With reflecting, questions and feelings are referred back to the client so that they may be recognized and accepted. It allows the client to realize that his point of view has been valued. So for instance, the client says, my sister won't help at all with my parents' care. And the nurse responds, you feel angry when she doesn't help. Focusing works well with clients who really move rapidly from one topic to another or from one thought to another. It's not therapeutic with a client who's anxious, so you can't really try to get them to focus. But if they just have a lot of ideas, then you can say something, the nurse can say something like, well, this point seems worth looking at more closely. Perhaps you and I can discuss it more thoroughly. And it allows you to focus on one topic. Exploring allows for delving further into subjects or ideas or experiences or relationships. So For instance, the nurse could say, please explain that situation in more detail, or tell me more about that particular situation. With clarification and validation, you're striving to explain a concept or idea of the patient that may be vague or hard to understand. You're searching for a mutual understanding or meaning of what is being said. So, for instance, a nurse could say, I'm not sure that I understand. Would you please explain? Or, do I understand you correctly that you said? So, we've gone already through the therapeutic communication techniques. You guys remember those. And now we're going to talk about the non-therapeutic ones, like giving reassurance, rejecting, giving approval or disapproval, agreeing or disagreeing, giving advice, um, defending, requesting an explanation, external source of power, and belittling. When you're giving reassurance, you're really telling the patient that there's no reason for their anxiety, and as a result, you devalue their feelings. Like, oh, I wouldn't worry about that, or everything will be all right. A better thing to say would be, we'll work on that together. With rejecting, you're refusing to consider or show contempt for the ideas or behavior. You stop communication for fear of further rejection. So things like, "Oh, let's not discuss that," or I don't want to hear about that. Better to say, let's look at that a little closer. With giving approval or disapproval, you're really sanctioning or denouncing their ideas or their behavior, and it implies that you, as the nurse, has the right to pass judgment, which we don't have. Statements such as, "That's good. I'm glad that you," or "That's bad. I'd rather you wouldn't." Better to say, "Let's talk about how your behavior invoked anger in the other clients at dinner." Remembering that with giving approval and disapproval, we don't give advice. We allow them to come to their own conclusions, and it is not really us, because especially when you're trying to develop that rapport, we're not at that space where we can even say that we know them well enough to pass judgment. That leads us into agreeing and disagreeing. It indicates that we're either for or against the client's ideas or their opinion. It implies again that we have the right to pass judgment, which we do not. Like, "That's right, I agree," or "That's wrong, I disagree." Better to say, "Let's discuss what you feel is unfair about," and then whatever the topic is about. Again, giving advice tells the client what to do. It implies that the nurse knows what's best. Like, "I think you should," or "Why don't you?" Better to say, "What do you think you should do?" or "What do you think would be best for you?" Defending is an attempt to protect someone or something from a verbal attack. It implies that the client has no right to express their feelings. So, an example would be, "Well, no one here would lie to you," or "I'm sure your doctor only has your best interest in mind." Better to say, "I'll try to answer your question and clarify your issues regarding your treatment." Or another example that we talked about in class is, "Yes, I have been busy, and I apologize that you feel ignored," or "I'm sorry that you feel ignored." That's okay to do that. Requesting an explanation requires that the client tell you or provide a reason for their thoughts, feelings, and their behavior. And this can be intimidating and imply that they have to defend that those feelings and the behaviors. "Why do you think that?" or "Why do you feel that way?" It negates their feelings and makes it seem as though they don't have a right to have them. Better to say, "Describe what you're feeling just before that happened." Belittling shows a lack of empathy and understanding. It makes the client feel like they're insignificant and unimportant. Statements such as, "Well, everybody gets down in the dumps at times." It might be better to say, "You must be very upset. Tell me what you are feeling now." With external source of power, the client is encouraged to put the blame on others for why they think or feel the way they do, such as, well, what makes you say that? Or what made you do that? Better to say, you became angry when, and then continue the conversation.